Hey guys, my name is Dennis. Welcome to my channel. I appreciate you for taking your time to click on this video. Now, if this is your first time here, I do my best to make videos that either teach or inform. If that sounds interesting, then consider subscribing. And in this video, I'm going to talk about information regarding photography and videography that I've been able to learn on YouTube in my 1 year on YouTube right now. Now, quick disclaimer so that this video is not too long. I won't go too deeply into any of the things that I'm going to mention in this video. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what they are or what they do so that this video can end in a timely manner and so that you can have a better watching experience. If you want to know more about any of these things, then let me know in the comment section and I'll be sure to address your concern or your question. Now, aperture is an opening in the lens, and it's one of two things that control the amount of light that gets into a camera. Now, if you want a deep dive on what the aperture does and how it works, then I've made another video that you can go and watch. It's right here. But that's the first thing that I've learned on YouTube, aperture, and that it's an opening in the lens that controls the amount of light that gets into a camera. Bitrate is a measure of data, specifically how much data is transferred or transmitted in a given amount of time. Now, the most popular form of bitrate that I'm sure you know about is Mbps or megabits per second. In addition, bitrate can also be used to measure the quality of an audio file or a video file. In the same manner that resolution is used to measure an image, bitrate can also be used to measure the quality of an audio file or a video file. The higher the bitrate, then the better the quality of the audio file or the video file. Now, there are different types of cameras, the most popular being DSLR cameras, that is DSLR. These type of cameras have been the go-to professional cameras for the longest time. Now, for a camera to qualify as a DSLR, it must have an optical viewfinder, and because they have optical viewfinders, these cameras are more on the bulky side of cameras. They're bigger and more sophisticated and more difficult to use. Another type of cameras is mirrorless cameras. If you remove the optical viewfinder from a DSLR camera, what you get is a mirrorless camera. And because mirrorless cameras don't have an optical viewfinder, what they have is a digital viewfinder. Because of this, they are lightweight and easy to use. The third type of cameras are the instant cameras or the Polaroid cameras. What this means is that with this type of cameras, when you take a picture, it's printed out immediately. Another type of camera is smartphone cameras, which are getting better year by year. All these camera types target different types of people and different types of users, starting from hobbyists or people that use cameras for family events and vacations, all the way to filmmakers and professional photographers and videographers. Before YouTube, the drones I knew about, new being the operative word, are the drones I saw in movies, and these are drones that are used for military purposes. But it's because of YouTube that I've been able to see in a more detailed format drones used for photography and videography and the kind of videos and photos you get when you use drones. And they range in prices from drones such as the DJI Mavic Mini, which you can get for about $300 US, to drones such as the Inspire 2 made by DJI, which goes for about $10,000 US, which is a lot of money. And that is not even the most expensive. What I've been able to get and to understand from my experience seeing drones on YouTube is that one cannot be a complete photographer or videographer without a drone. So aerial shots are an essential part of photography and videography. Exposure in simple terms is just how bright or how dark your images or videos are. So it's correct to say that exposure is the amount of light that is getting into your camera. And the good thing is, in most cameras, exposure can be adjusted. So if you're outside on a bright sunny day, you want to reduce your exposure. And if you're in a very dark place, then you want to bump up your exposure to get images or videos that are correctly exposed. Now, this is interesting. Before YouTube, I didn't know that videos are just pictures. What normally happens is that a camera takes multiple pictures and puts them together to form a video. These pictures are called frames, and that is where the name frame rate comes from. So frame rate is the speed at which images appear on your display. And the slowest frame rate that the human eye can recognize as a video is 24 frames per second. So those are 24 frames or 24 pictures that have been taken then put together to form a video. This video is being shot at 30 frames per second, but then frame rates are used for different purposes. For example, if you want to get slow motion footage, you can shoot at 60 frames per second. Then during editing or during post-processing, you reduce the speed of that footage shot by 60 frames per second to 30 frames per second, and therefore you'll have achieved a 50% slow motion rate. You can also shoot in say 120 frames per second and reduce that by 4 so that you get 30 frames per second. Gimbals essentially are just stabilizers that are used to get smooth footage on the move. So what one does is that you take your camera and you put it on the gimbal, and the gimbal compensates for your movement and your shaking so that you get smooth footage. What you need to get from this is that if you want to shoot smooth footage, you use a gimbal, and videos shot on gimbals are smoother than videos shot without stabilizers of any kind. Handheld videos or images are images or videos shot without stabilizers of any kind. What this means is that you take your camera, you hold it in your hand, and you shoot without using a tripod or a stabilizer or a gimbal, and hence the name handheld. Now ISO is the sensor sensitivity to light. Each camera comes with a sensor, and what ISO does is that it controls the amount of light that is needed to correctly expose an image. So the higher the ISO, the less light is needed to correctly expose an image, and the lower the ISO, the more light is needed to correctly expose an image. So ISO can also be called fake light, and because of that, the more fake light you use, the more noise or the more disruption you introduce into your footage. So it's always wise to use lower ISOs, but only in brightly lit places. Again, I've made a video that talks more about this. If you want to watch that video, I'll attach it in the description, and you can go and see how the ISO works and how it's used with other elements of the camera, that is the aperture, as well as the shutter speed, which I'll get to later on. Now JPEG is an image format that is used in photography. There are different kinds of image formats that I will not get into. What you need to know is that JPEG images are usually smaller images because they sacrifice image quality for size. So you get a smaller size but you sacrifice quality. But all you need to know is that JPEG is one of the formats that are used in photography to compress images. Okay, Kelvins maybe. But I've forgotten what Kelvins are or what they do. All I know is that Kelvins are used to control white balance or something. Now lenses are instruments that focus light to the camera's sensor. Now different lenses do this differently. The three most common type of lenses that you need to know about are zoom lenses, prime lenses, and telephoto lenses. Now what zoom lenses are lenses that have a focal length that you can change. For example, the lens that I'm using right now is a 15 to 45 millimeter zoom lens, and most zoom lenses are variable aperture lenses. What this means is that as you change the focal length of the lens, the aperture changes. The aperture, which you need to remember, is an opening in the lens. So as you change the focal length, the aperture either becomes smaller or it becomes bigger. The second type of lenses is the prime lenses. The prime lenses are also called fixed aperture lenses. They don't have a changing focal length. Telephoto lenses, on the other hand, are lenses that have very extreme focal lengths, and because of this, they're very bulky and very, very expensive. Different lenses are used for different photography and videography needs. That's what you need to get out of this. Now many of the cameras these days come with different modes, and manual mode is one of them. Manual mode is special because in manual mode you become the boss of the camera, to say the least. In those other modes, the camera operates on a semi-automatic kind of operation, but in manual mode, I say you become the boss of the camera because you're able to set the aperture for yourself, you're able to set the shutter speed, you're able to set the ISO, you're able to set the exposure. You use the camera as it was meant to be used. Noise is actually distortion in an image or a video. This noise can also be called grain, and you often see it when an image or video is poorly exposed, so it's underexposed or overexposed. These are the two times when you're likely to see noise or grain in an image. When an image or footage is overexposed, it means that it's too bright. So what that means is that too much light is getting into the camera, and the camera is not able to compensate for that and give us a true-to-life representation of what you're trying to see. I don't know how to explain pan and zoom, so what I'll do is I'll just show you how it works. So that is pan and zoom. I don't have anything for Q, man. Q, no. When you shoot in RAW, it means that the camera sensor captures all the data of the image without processing it. So all the light, all the dynamic range, all the shadows, everything is captured as the camera sees it and it doesn't process it. So these RAW images are typically very big files, and you also have to process them yourself. What you need to get out of this is that when you shoot in RAW, you collect all the data and then you go and post-process that image yourself and make it look the way you want it to look. The simplest way to explain shutter speed is to think of the shutter as a door behind the lens, and this door can either open or close. So the amount of time it takes for the door or the shutter to open or close is referred to as the shutter speed. This is simple and yet so very difficult to explain. Tripods are stands. So right now I'm shooting on a tripod. So tripods are used to hold cameras so that you can get very still images or videos. I think that is the only way I can explain a tripod. Stands that hold cameras. So I don't know if you have a better explanation. Let me know, guys. Let me know in the comments. Every professional videographer and photographer often says that the biggest asset you have is your mind, because everyone sees the world differently. So for you to get the best images and the best videos for you as well as for other people, sometimes you have to rely on your mind and your unique perspective so that you get what you think is beautiful and not just what you think you should get or what you think other photographers in your position would get. So you go with your uniqueness, you go with your unique perspective to get the best results. Vantage Point. How do I explain Vantage Point? If you've been with me up to this point, I know you're not going anywhere and you just like me as a person maybe. So I can afford to ramble a bit and you won't be offended because you've been with me up to this point. So Vantage Point is just different perspectives, and often people are advised to get different perspectives, at least get 3 unique or 3 different vantage points. For example, when you're shooting a photograph, you're told to get 3 different shots. So you can get a horizontal shot, get a vertical shot, get a slightly, I would say, slanted shot, so that you go and look at all these 3 shots together. And perhaps you can discover that the best looking one is the one that was slanted, or the one that was vertical, or the one that was horizontal. So that is what is meant by vantage point. So white balance is just a setting in the camera that allows you to adjust colors so that colors appear natural. So that white is white, red is red, orange is orange, and all other colors appear as they are supposed to be, hence the name white balance. X and Y, nada, 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 nada. If you have anything about X and Y, perhaps let me know in the comment section. Oops. Z for zoom. How can you explain zoom again, man? Get closer to an image. Zoom. When you zoom, you want to get attention. So for example, if I zoom like this, I'm seeing you, man. I see you. So you see, we can connect, like, yeah. Whew. This has been a long one, man. If you've watched it up to this point, then I appreciate you. You're a legend. You're a legend. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, take a detour to the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you on the next.